Hello and welcome to another modelling video. This is Alan from the Man at YouTube with another modelling video. Today we are going to be doing a Q&A session. Last week I put a call out for questions and or shout outs. Today we are going to answer them. Now I don't have too many, but we will carry on as we usually do. Now, just before I get into it, I was at my local hobby shop, Showcase Models, about a few days ago, and was talking to an aircraft modeler for like 2 hours. Probably drove the poor owner John crazy. And we discussed the effects of lacquer thinner and general purpose thinner and how it's quite terrible for your health, so do remember your respirators and extractor booths. And he was wondering, with lacquer paints, are you able to clean the airbrush and spray them out with acetone? I did a little experiment and found acetone has lifted lacquer paint up quite easily, and it has no problems wiping down and flushing through a airbrush. So if you are a tad concerned, and just for cleaning sake, acetone is an alternative. We're going straight to Tim, who's a long-term contributor to this segment. Much appreciated. Hi Alan. Bummer what's happened to your computer. By the way, the other week my hard drive has crashed. It's all been recovered. It's all in a new hard drive on a reformatted computer, and everything's finally set up, so my YouTube channel is running as normal, and there's a full schedule of videos to be released for the next few weeks uninterrupted. Hopefully everything will go well with saving your data. Recovered all my data, no problems. Thank you very much. Just a few questions. Does the Tamiya surface primer that comes in a jar contain microphylla? Yes, it does. It probably reacts very similar to Mr. Surfacer 1000, probably slightly more coarser than that. And funny you asked that question. I've actually, out of popular request or demand, have just filmed, made and edited a tutorial review on how to use Tamiya surface primer. It should be released sometime next week, Tuesday, Wednesday-ish. So look forward to that, and I assume it's going to be quite a popular video. Sometimes the gate marks leave a sort of sink marks which after painting become visible. Yes, you sort of get little gouges when you're removing nubs. Since for some reason Mr. White Putty does not work for me, is it possible to use Mr. Surfacer 500 for this job? Also for getting rid of normal sink marks. I use something very similar to Mr. Surfacer 500 for 3D models. I coat it and sand it back. The problem with primers being lacquer, it does shrink or as it evaporates. It is possible, but what I would recommend you do is sort of dab a bit, multiple times, a bit of primer onto the sink mark or hole until it sort of builds up into a slight mold, and once that dries, hopefully it will dry and evaporate until it's quite flat, and you're able to sand it back to the finish of the model. So yes, it technically should be possible. Give it a go, but since it does evaporate, you might come to the issue of applying it. It dries, it evaporates, it shrinks, and it goes from a sinkhole to a slight sinkhole. So you want to put a couple of coats on that exact spot. Hope that answers you, Tim, and thank you for your long-term support. Stephen Burnside asks, hello Alan, great to see you are doing another one of these. I try to do them every month. I'm glad that they are helpful for you. They have helped tremendously in bettering my skills in every aspect. I am actually confident enough to build and customize a bear guy for this woman I like. Wish me luck. Oh, good move. I like that. I do wish you luck. Funnily enough, women do love handmade items over store-bought stuff. Majority of the time, they find it very cute and personalised. It's something that you just can't buy in mass and give them. So, normally, from my experiences and hearing it from other people, it does work out quite well, especially for established girlfriend, boyfriend relationship scenario. So definitely, mate, go for it. Good luck, and at some stage, see if you can stick a kid under her nose and that you can build together. You know, that's something that's ideal, and if you could share a hobby, it's you can share a better relationship when you're both on the same level. My question to you is, and I didn't mean to give relationship advice, is the cleaning of parts on just standard kits, not resin, completely necessary? Will there be visible physical changes to the parts after that they've been cleaned properly, and what is the solution you usually use? It's worded a bit funny. What I assume the question means is people who wash their styrene plastic runners from injection molded kits, where they soak them and scrub them. I do not clean my styrene kits. Styrene injection process is that you have a mold made out of metal. They may or may not have a release agent. They inject molten plastic in there. The injection process occurs at heats so high, anything that would be in that mold would conform to the plastic, burn, or just get absolutely destroyed from the heat. Once the plastic cools down, that's all that's left, just the styrene. Maybe really old kits might have some sort of funny residue on it just from, you know, aging and becoming powdery and funny. But modern kits or new kits made in the past 20 years, they generally do not have any issues of release agents or coatings or anything that would make painting or adhering paint or primer a difficulty. So I normally just crack a kit open, build it, then paint it. The rare few times that I actually wash my kit is after I might heavily build and paint a kit, and I might actually use lubricants on the surface of a model to make dye molds with putty and whatnot, and to make pieces contour, and got my hand grease and other crap on the model. It might just get a light basic dishwashing liquid solution with water, scrubbed down, rinsed and dried for a few days. If you feel the need to wash your kits, I'm not going to judge. A lot of people do that. Normal trend is to just scrub it with a soft sponge while still on the runners in a mixture of water and dishwashing liquid. Some people prefer warm water. That's that. I don't do it, but yeah. When you apply Lacquer Primer to a surface, because of the lacquer thinner mixed in, if there is a light amount of dust or a light amount of finger grease, that normally gets dissolved from the strong solvents. So that's my opinion, and a lot of my paint work has never really been compromised from that. So yeah. Okay, next question. What compressor and airbrush do you recommend for beginners? Maybe something no more than $175 total. I'm not sure if you're in Australia, Canada or America, so I don't really know where you are, what hobby shops sell and how you can get a compressor or not. Generally, what I recommend nowadays with people wanting to get into airbrushing, put as much money as possible into the compressor. The better the compressor, the less likely that you're going to be wanting to replace it, upgrade, whatever. I bought an inadequate compressor 10-12 years ago, which was a tiny Sparmax compressor. It's beautiful, but it doesn't have a tank, it doesn't have a regulator, and I wanted to get into the finer stuff, so I put it aside and I bought a Delta tank compressor, tank compressor, and that set me back about $180–200. It's a great piece. I do love it, and I cover it in my honing my airbrush skills video. But since I do use it quite extensively, I do pump out half a dozen or more models a year. Over time, the interiors have rusted of the tank. The plastic regulator, which costs $20, $30, $40 to replace to a nice metal one, is heavily leaking, and the motor eventually got earth leakage and started overloading the circuit, meaning that the earth's dead or something, or there's a short. So it's slowly dying. I have a lot of trouble regulating the air. It's not working as efficiently as I want, and now I'm going to have to discard that and buy something again. So in this past 13, 14 years, I've spent close to $500 on compressors, and I'm about to shell out $300–400 on another one. So what I recommend is do your homework. How dedicated you are to this hobby or not, I suggest you shell out probably that much or more on a compressor itself. The Delta one is pretty good, but I gave it an absolute hammering. Maybe a brand name like a Apache or a Sparmax compressors are beautiful. Anything with a high capacity tank has to have a dial, has to have a regulator, and all your money goes into that. Afterwards, you go to your airbrush. You can buy a really nice airbrush for about $120. The Sparmax DH103 I highly recommend. If you're really poor and you want to thrash something out before you buy something nicer, the DH103 knockoff dual action 7 milliliter cup models on eBay are pretty excellent. They sort of are all silver with a black rear, or all silver with a gold rear. The gold rear ones are a knockoff of the Sparmax DH3. Those work amazingly well. What I really like about them is all the components are metal. I was talking to a friend about his knockoff airbrush, and it had a plastic trigger, and that just dissolved from thinner. They're really good to play around with for a few years. I've actually given away and sold some to a few people, and they've never complained, never replaced them, except just upgraded to something that's a bit finer. So you can buy a cheaper airbrush and still do effective painting on models. In one of the future honing your airbrush videos skills video, I am going to actually focus purely on those cheap $20–30 airbrushes, what to look at to buy them, how to maintain them, how they perform. I think they perform quite brilliantly, and yeah, all of your money in a good air compressor. Has to have a tank, has to have a regulator, has to have a dial, and what's left over into the airbrush. In the future, you can buy accessories for the compressor. You can buy a better airbrush, but probably for close to $200. If you look at the Delta model, you can probably get a cheap airbrush and compressor package. Sometimes the Delta set actually comes with the Delta brand airbrush. That is a decent airbrush. It's very similar to the Sparmax one. So I would look out for that. If you only have $175, maybe hold out for a few more months, build up a bit more money, and buy something nice. If you do decide that this hobby is not for you and you bought a nice compressor, compressors do have a decent resale value if you maintain them well. If you practice such as draining the air before you're turning it out, you always drain the water out. You should generally get the majority of your money back from the compressor if you pass it on to someone, ensuring that you're quite knowledgeable about it and you've looked after it. Next question, Boxbuyer 2008, who's also a long-term supporter. Thank you very much. If we don't need a ultrasonic cleaner, what is the best method for deep cleaning an airbrush? It's a very good question. It's something I do intend on covering in my, I'm thinking maybe November, honing your airbrush skills video. You need and it's not here, you can get these little bottle brushes, and you can sell them on, you can find them on eBay for about $2. So if you type in just airbrush cleaner, put it to, you know, lowest shipping and price, approximately $2 from China. They are excellent for cleaning the chamber in between the nozzle once it's removed to the paint cup. As long as you give that part a really good scrubbing, things won't clog. For the back end of the airbrush from the trigger backwards, cleaning that is going to be really hard. And you're going to have to be very creative getting into the air solenoid, so that's going to take a lot of effort. But if you make sure that the business area of the nozzle is absolutely spotless and free of debris, and that you've got ways of reaching a cotton bud or a Q-tip or a paintbrush with thinner into underneath the trigger where the air solenoid is, you should be able to maintain your brush pretty well. I will try to demonstrate this as soon as possible, but it is never going to give a deep clean as well as an ultrasonic cleaner. I've actually demonstrated various times when I tried to clean my brush to airbrush to the best of my ability with a few tools. Dropped it in the ultrasonic cleaner anyway, turned it up, and you just saw the cloud of paint being activated by the thinner and raising to the top. But it should work. For your more expensive airbrushes, it's probably better that you do a strip down and manual clean over using an ultrasonic cleaner. But yeah, stay tuned for that tutorial. An online anonymous question. Do you hand paint or spray pot primer? Recommended for beginners. It's my opinion that the process of modelling should be a lot of fun, and what you enjoy doing and what you're comfortable with the sort of finish you get turned out. I believe with spraying either via airbrush, spray can or hand painting, people when they start out the hobby have a low skill set and knowledge of the use of tools, products and how to apply the finish, and it's something that needs to be practiced, developed, and acquiring the actual knowledge through demonstration, copying and doing it yourself. I recommend any modeler try all three techniques when possible, and try to be able to do a decent job and learn the skill sets for all three, only if you really want to. Hand painting primer is very possible, and you can get a brilliant, flat and fantastic finish even in lacquer. Watch my hand painting lacquer videos. But if you want to save time and just get a stress-free finish, I normally just airbrush it on. Some people who want the absolute most ease and no trouble will buy the $20 rattle cans, spray down their kit, and everything else is done either by hand painting or airbrushing, because some people have a little trouble with spray painting primers or airbrushing primers, or they just don't want to for some reason. Yeah, my personal preference is airbrushing primer, but I recommend giving hand painting a go, and if that's not your thing, it's too time consuming, doesn't give you the ideal finish, give airbrushing and rattle can a go. They all will do the same job. Last question. When creating an MS Girl, when I make those Mikami with an anime vinyl or plastic figure, and I glue model bits to it and paint it up. When creating an MS Girl using soft vinyl figure, how do I attach parts such as chest pieces and fine pieces like V-fins without damaging the figure? There's a few people that buy the very expensive Figmas. They come close to well over $100, and they want the figure not to be damaged in the paintwork whatsoever. You do have to do some work that may be considered or constitute as damage. To do something like a chest piece, what I'd recommend is you'll have a chest bit that fits over the breasts quite easily. I normally put in a 2-part epoxy putty, and I'll lubricate, ram it right into the crevice. Lubricate it with water on the surface of the figure and the surface of the putty, and I'll press it on to contour that body part to the putty. Remove it, wipe the surface down, allow it to harden. In future, you're able to put a tiny drop of super glue or what sort of other glue, stick it right to the body where it fits perfectly. Not too much glue will run down and spoil things, and just hold it in place, clamp with your fingers for a period of time after painting, and it will stick there permanently. No damage, but the piece is on that figure permanently. With V-fins, they're quite tiny. I know a popular technique is a bit of blue tack, and you sandwich the V-fin to the section of the head or the surface of the body, and you apply a tiny bit of super glue on the top. Unless you're using a fine applicator or something, there's possibility of it going wrong, or even sticking a bit of the blue tack and the blue tack remaining on the figure. What I like to do is using 1/2 mil or 1 mil wire, I'll pin the V-fin, even if it's just only 1/2 mil stuck into the V-fin itself, and pin it into the figure. So you drill a hole directly in the figure where you want to pin the piece, drill a hole in the piece, stick a bit of wire in there, test fit it on the area you want to glue it. If it looks good, you do your painting, your business end, and you apply the minimalist amount of glue. Worst case scenario, the glue gives out, the piece falls out, you re-glue it into place. Put too much glue in, it'll run and spoil the surface. This can be a bit nerve-wracking if you've never worked on a figure before, and if you're only exclusively working on expensive figures. Have a little look at your local anime store, have a look on eBay. You can buy very small Gashapon figures or Sega collectible statue figures very, very cheaply. Practice with gluing pieces on them, cutting them, drilling them, doing stuff with them, and making mistakes and seeing how that works before you attempt more expensive figures. And you could just go all out and have fun and do crazy things before you attempt something more expensive. Once you're up to your expensive figures, then things should go like a dream. I know everybody wants to make an amazing model using an amazing figure that's very expensive, and just wow groups on Facebook and local groups and whatever, and become the crown jewel of your collection. But unless you practice, you're not going to get the confidence. And the number one thing about attempting something on something so expensive is confidence. And to build confidence, and if you've done it on plastic without any stress, and you know you can do it, and you know where you can make mistakes and where you can't, once you attempt it on something so expensive, you won't have as much anxiety or stress. And overall, that's the best opinion I can give about that subject. All in all, this was a very short Q&A session. Sometimes this occurs. The last few ones have been very, very long. Thank you very much for watching. I will definitely do a November Q&A before I go to my trip in Japan. I don't know about a December one, but it will go back to January. I haven't done anything for a honing your airbrush skills yet this month, but I think I'm going to start putting one together next week. Other content, I'm working on a Zugok and the Macross battlesuit. A lot of videos coming out. No shout-outs in particular. Older Gunpla forums if you're into your Facebook groups. And that's about it. Again, thank you very much, and catch you guys later.